How much emotions can impact our lives? Can we control them? And if so, why? Hi, and welcome to the Magical Parenting Podcast. I'm Cristina Tumino, a holistic educator and the founder of the Magical Parenting Method, where I can provide you with a unique recipe to raise happy and fulfilled children. In this episode, I will continue talking about the magical bodies, and in particular, the emotional body. This is the body that has to do with emotions, feelings, and relationships. Emotions and feelings play an important role in our human experience. How we express them is vital to our well-being and the way we interact with the world around us. They have different functions with positive and negative aspects. But what is an emotion? Is there any difference between emotions and feelings? Some psychologists believe that there is. They consider emotions as an automatic body response to a certain situation. It's an impulse, a reaction, like when we get angry at what somebody said. Emotions mostly work on an unconscious level and create or change the individual's state. Feelings, instead, are experiences which we obtain after managing to perceive our emotions in a conscious way. So when we become aware of the emotion at play, we might start to realize its outcome, such as feeling angry. I think it is important to distinguish emotions and feelings from intuition. Intuition has to do with receiving, with connecting with that subtle voice, yet powerful divine wisdom that is our soul. But I will say more about this when I talk about the spiritual body. Going back to emotions, when we surrender to emotions, we become irrational. So, is it okay to surrender to emotions? Can we control them? Nowadays, we start to consider emotions as an important component of our well-being. In fact, it's increasingly popular to talk about emotional intelligence, emotional potential, or emotional competence. With this, we learn the skills to recognize emotions, how we perceive, experience, and express them without being overwhelmed or controlled by them. These skills can help us build better relationships, identify feelings, and solve internal and external conflicts, which can also interfere with our physical and mental health. More closely, emotional intelligence focuses on keeping a good ratio between emotions and rationality. Although I would add that we need to work with the other interrelated bodies too. An interesting and quite unusual way to look at emotions is by learning about some symbolism. Let's say that emotions can be associated with the element water. In dreams, water is usually interpreted as a symbol of the subconscious and emotions. When we think of emotions as water, we can give them a more concrete form, and it can help us to better understand how they work. One of water's features is to have a definite volume, but an indefinite shape. For instance, by putting some water into a glass, the volume of the water will be contained and the shape of the water will be kept under control until the liquid will be within the surfaces of the glass. But if we continue to pour water, there will be a point where the water will overflow the glass with no control. The same thing happens if water is contained within the edges of a river. The water could be still or have currents. It can be crystal clear or cloudy. However, what happens if all of a sudden there is a storm that lasts for days? Can we avoid a flood? What if rather strong currents begin to take form, leading the stream to a cliff? Could we divert the torrent? And what if instead of the river, the container in question is actually our body? Research shows that 60 to 75% of our body is water. Water is in our blood, in our brain, in our lungs, in our skin, in our heart. even in our bones. Water is essential to our very existence. In fact, we can survive only a few days without it. By looking at things under this perspective, we could perhaps consider the idea that on one side, emotions have their independent characteristics with their currents, stillness, clearness, murkiness, and on the other side, emotions also strongly influence the smallest single cell of our physical body by being water itself an essential component. Under this light, the historical belief that the moon has some effect on human beings, oceans, and crops, all made of water, can actually gain more credit. Some ancient theories propose that the moon's gravitational force pulls fluids within the body, amplifying emotions, changing moods and behaviors, influencing menstrual cycles, and aggravating medical conditions such as epilepsy. A recent study, also published on BBC.com, suggests that incidents of criminal activities outdoors may be higher where there is more moonlight. Some interesting approaches, for instance, in the medical field, consider emotions as the cause and the cure of all sorts of diseases, from allergies, chronic illnesses, and even cancer. This is the case of the 5 biological laws, or so-called German New Medicine of Dr. Hammer. All these I mentioned so far is to say that as we can develop physically and mentally, we should also develop emotionally. We need to be aware of the emotions at play. We need to be able to acknowledge them, to live them, and to manage them, especially if we are parents. It is by developing these skills that we can become mature and strong. Parenting exposes individuals to all sorts of strong emotions. It is quite common for a parent to feel lots of pressure when raising children while juggling with stress of daily tasks, such as keeping the house clean, working, being your child's driver, maybe dealing with financial difficulties, to don't even consider all the difficulties of dealing with children, especially with toddlers and tantrums. We can also set very high expectations on ourselves. We want to be good parents and we try our best in order to do a great job. Unfortunately, living in this constantly high demanding mode can have negative consequences and a significant impact on every member of the family. It can cause frustrations, exhaustion, grumpiness, misunderstandings, anxiety, and it can lead to mental health problems and separations. This can put a person in a position of no control over personal emotions. It is like emotions begin to take a life of their own, dismissing the person's wills and starting to lead on their own. Have you ever felt so angry, envious, or depressed and acted in a way that you don't even recognize as being yourself? The problem is that we constantly role model our behaviors, whether consciously or unconsciously. So when we don't know how to deal with a situation and shout or hit or shame our children to regain some control over them, we teach them to solve problems by shouting, hitting, and shaming others. If we feel particularly fearful or anxious and we're not even aware of it or don't know how to manage it, our children will feel and do the same. One of the signs of living in emotional tension or being in little control of our emotions are, for instance, visible when we get easily and quite often angry, we're easily resentful or extremely emotional. We can feel a bit vindictive, aggressive, or fearful. We can even not be aware that we are acting as a victim or that we need to belittle or shame others, and that we often find fault in everyone else but ourselves. Unfortunately, these can be more common than what we might think. And one of the reasons is that it's not easy to personally become aware of something that we do that is not so pleasant to see? Would you consider yourself the evil of the story, especially after all you do for your children and your partner? And this is where justifications of any kind and lies can be the easy way around. Therefore, it is vital to become aware of our negative aspects and patterns before even focusing on the positive ones. I will talk more in detail about this in my next episodes. In conclusion, children should begin to learn to associate emotions to certain behaviors and rationalize them from the age of 3 or 4 years old, because this is when children build the foundations for future behaviors and relationships. This is not a simple task because it is already hard for us as adults to do this with ourselves. So self-work as parents and individuals is essential in order to educate our children. If you or your child need any support with the emotional body or any of the other magical bodies within, please do contact me on info@magicalparenting.co.uk for a chat, or if you have any questions, please do write any comments below and I will try my best to answer them. I'll see you in my next episode. Bye.